What's going on, everyone? This is DerekJ Speaks, and today we are here to talk about the WWE Royal Rumble 2024 live from St. Petersburg, Florida. A show that was highly anticipated in terms of who is going to walk out the big winners on this night, and we now know that two people who are guaranteed to be heading to championship matches at WrestleMania 40 in Philly are Bayley and, for the second year in a row, Cody Rhodes. Cody is the first man in over 2 decades to go back-to-back years winning the Royal Rumble match. And he did so in a men's Royal Rumble match that overall wasn't all that exciting. You had moments here and there, but for the most part, top to bottom, this wasn't the most exciting Rumble match. And the crowd was very much so not interested in a good chunk of this match. You had many points over the course of this match where the crowd was quiet. They were not very interested in what was going on. They would pop for certain people coming out. You had a few names out there who they liked and who were doing cool things, but for the most part, they were not all that invested. Even when it came down to those final closing moments, they still did not seem all that interested. So I'm not here to go through the entire match, start to finish, top to bottom, but I will mention a few things notable about the match. Like I said, the crowd really was not fully invested in the entire match, but there were some things that they seemed interested in. For example, the first two entrants out there starting off the match were Jimmy and Jey Uso. So that gave you a little preview of what many expect to be a WrestleMania match this year. So the two of them went at it for a little bit. We have the return of Andrade in the Rumble match. A lot of people predicted that when it was confirmed that Andrade had wrapped up his time in AEW. A lot of people expected that he would either debut on that first Raw of the new year or they would save him for the Rumble. And as you can see, they did the latter. We had some interaction with Bobby Lashley and Karrion Kross, and we had a brawl between their two factions. Of course, Lashley and the Street Profits and this new Final Testament faction with Karrion Kross and the returning AOP. That was just another moment, though. There was nothing overly special about it. It is a very low mid-card feud, and it didn't get a huge reaction from the people. Cody Rhodes, he came out earlier than he did last year. I remember that being a complaint of some people that they waited until number 30 for him to come out there, and he won from there. This year, he came out at number 15, and he lasted a good while in this match. So that was great. We had Braun Breaker from NXT, a man who is long overdue for a main roster call-up. He was out there showing off his intensity, just knocking people down, just bouncing off the ropes with quick, rapid speed and force, spearing people, mowing people down. He got rid of a lot of big dudes. He got rid of Ivar, who was out there. Omos returned to TV, and he was out there. He got dumped out by him. And there was a brief comedy spot with Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee was on the show. He came back to do commentary, much like he did last year, where he surprised all the commentators. This year, it was not a surprise for Michael Cole, but he was still at the commentary booth when they played his music. He got up, he got in the ring. At that moment, Braun Breaker and Omos were having a face-off, and Pat McAfee eliminated himself. So, a complete waste. Speaking of wastes and comedy spots, we also had R-Truth. He did some comedy in the Women's Rumble, but he was also out here in this match. He was playing up his relationship with the Judgment Day. It didn't last too long because Damian Priest was in the match. He came out, he eliminated R-Truth immediately. Damian Priest is someone who has been kind of liking Truth's antics over the past couple of weeks, but he took it a step too far on the previous week's Raw, where he basically cost Priest a match against Drew McIntyre. So Priest don't want nothing to do with him now. But Speaking of Drew McIntyre, he was out there as well. He was a big force in this match. CM Punk came out around number 27. So around the end of the match, that's when we started to get some big names coming out, because early on in those first several entrances, there was just guys one after another and all fighting, and it's like there is no one here in these early numbers who has a chance in hell of winning this match. Therefore, it makes it very uninteresting to follow what's going on. So I can see why people weren't really cheering or reacting to this match, because there was no one to really cheer for. There was no one out there up until Cody came out like at around number 15. There was no one prior to that who anyone thought had a chance of winning this match. So they kind of saved some of the bigger names for the latter part of the match. You know, we had Gunther out there. We had CM Punk came out. Drew McIntyre was out there. And then the number 30 spot, I was scared. I didn't know who it was going to be, but it went to Sami Zayn. Now, Sami, he's been gone. He's been selling an injury from Drew McIntyre, so he's been off TV for a while. So he did technically return. This was his return, but I tell you what, it was not as big of a return as the likes of John Cena in the past, or Edge, or people like that who have come back from injury to return in the Rumble match. It wasn't that big of a deal. And the fans, they popped for it. They liked seeing Sami. They were singing along to a song and all, but it wasn't a huge reaction. But I, on the other hand, was reacting huge. I told myself, thank God Sami Zayn is out here, because that meant The Rock did not come out, because had The Rock come out at number 30, The Rock would have won this damn match. But thankfully, now that this show is over, all signs point to us not getting Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania this year, for the better. So we whittled it down to the final four, and it came down to the two men who were the most likely to win, Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, and two dark horses in Drew McIntyre and Gunther. Although no one really figured that either of them would win, but they were still two good people to whittle it down to in the final four. Both men ended up getting eliminated. Punk tossed out McIntyre. Gunther got dumped out, I should say, by Cody. And it came down to Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, possibly the two biggest baby faces in the entire company. And the fans went crazy for the two of them initially. But then, as the two started to go back and forth, the crowd started to die down again. And they started chanting CM Punk. They were chanting for Cody Rhodes. Between the two, they seemed to be well more in favor of Cody as opposed to Punk. But, you know, with these two guys being two of the most over baby faces in the entire company and two of the more popular attractions in the entire company, you would think having the Rumble match come down to the two of them, people would be a little more invested, because these were literally the two people who either one of them were the most likely to win this match. So having either one of them win would have satisfied a good chunk of the people, not only around the world, but at least in that building. But between the two, going back and forth here, when the crowd was making some kind of noise and rising up at different times, they were leaning more towards Cody, and they got rewarded with that when Cody managed to dump Punk out of the ring and won his second straight Royal Rumble match. Now, if you were to ask me a month ago or 2 months ago or 6 months ago if I wanted to see Cody Rhodes go to the Royal Rumble in 2024 and win it for the second year in a row, I would have told you no. I was ready for someone else to win it. Before Punk came back at Survivor Series, I was ready to see Gunther win the Rumble or somebody like that. I was ready, once Punk did come back, I was all in favor of CM Punk winning the Rumble. But with how they laid the match out and how they are trying to tell their story, this is about the cleanest way you could have gotten to the destination that they are going to. Because as Cody was celebrating, as the pyro was shooting off, they did during the match show in two different skyboxes in the crowd. There was one suite that had Seth Rollins, the World Heavyweight Champion, the same currently injured Seth Rollins. He was chilling out there. They also had Roman Reigns in a different suite with Paul Heyman. So after the match, when Cody's celebrating and he's hitting the corners, posing, he did point up at the same box, the skybox that Roman Reigns was in, and all but laid out the challenge, and there it is right there for you. At WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, we are going to see for the second year in a row, Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Championship in order for Cody to finish his story. That was about the cleanest, easiest way to get to there. They did this match last year. Cody got screwed. He lost to Roman. He wanted redemption. He wanted a rematch. Roman denied him. They separated them, put Cody on Raw, kept Roman on SmackDown. So they were off on their own different islands. Both men did not a whole lot in the last year, but all signs pointed in this direction. Of course, you had mentions of The Rock pop up here and there, and you had all these different things being thrown out there, but Cody himself said it in his own interviews on TV and outside of the ring that he's not budging. And after how that match ended last year, there is no more fitting main event for WrestleMania this year than Cody versus Roman. Believe me, I'm not clamoring for this match only because this should have been done last year. Cody should have won last year, and this should have been the end of it then. But they are the ones who decided to keep the belt on Roman so he could pass 1,000 days as champion for no other reason other than to just say that Roman Reigns has been champion for over 1,000 days. Even looking at it with foresight, you could see that was the reason they did that. In hindsight, it's even more ridiculous that they did what they did with Cody Rhodes last year. This should not have even been the case. But because it is, this is the route that they need to go. You don't need The Rock. You don't need to do a Roman Rock match this year. You don't need to do a triple threat. You don't need to do any other bullshit. There was no one else for that spot against Roman at WrestleMania 40 than Cody Rhodes. And there was a thought of maybe they could somehow find a different path to get him to Roman because he's on Raw, Roman's on SmackDown. Maybe there's a different way to get him to Roman. They could do a trade. Maybe they can do some kind of cross-branded Elimination Chamber match and have him win that. They could have, but this is the easiest way to do it. Cody Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble. He is guaranteed a championship match at WrestleMania. He can pick whichever champion he wants to, and he picks Roman. That's the only way for him to get to that spot, and that's it. Point blank, period. That's it. So that's where we're heading, and Cody Rhodes needs to win. There's this group of people who are clamoring to see Roman Reigns keep the championship long enough to pass Hulk Hogan's record, which is not even a record. It's just the number of days that Hulk Hogan has been champion. It's like 1,400 something days. I think 1,474 maybe. And Roman is close to that. If he keeps the championship by September, he will pass Hogan's run as champion. Okay, then what? He's only number 3 behind Bob Backlund and Bruno Sammartino. There's no reason to do that. What these people, and look, people, they like what they like. I can't really judge them too harshly, but at the end of the day, what do you really want to see from this? We saw last year what keeping the championship on Roman Reigns longer than it needs to be does. It's weeks, it's months without Roman Reigns being on TV. And when he is on TV, it's the same promos. It's the same cadence. A lot of his matches, they follow a very similar formula, all the way down to ref bumps and bloodline interference and slow points and all that. When Roman's off TV, you have Solo standing there with his arm crossed. He's looking at his thumb. Jimmy Uso acting like a complete idiot. Paul Heyman talking into his phone to call Roman Reigns. This is what you are going to see more of for the next 6 or 8 months if they were to keep Roman Reigns as the champion coming out of WrestleMania. They made the decision to have Cody Rhodes lose last year and enter this year and win his second Royal Rumble 2 years in a row. They made that decision. You cannot then go all the way to WrestleMania in 40 and have Cody lose to Roman again with more bloodline interference, or even if it is a clean finish. That would just absolutely kill any interest anyone has in Cody Rhodes. Cody's the guy. Whether you like it or not, many people probably don't, but Cody Rhodes is the guy. He is the titular, tailor-made company guy. He is the guy to build around, and it's now or never. You got to put that championship on him. Almost more important than that, Roman's got to lose. There is nothing left. There is no value left in having Roman Reigns carry on this reign as champion. All you're doing is just adding days and adding months and adding years onto this reign. That's it. That's not impressive. It's not impressive when you can say he's been champion for 1,150 something days and he hasn't been on TV in 2 months, or he comes out and he doesn't wrestle, or he wrestles one match every so often on a pay-per-view and it's the exact same fucking match that it was 3 months ago on a different pay-per-view. And not even interesting. Now tonight, he did have a good match. I'll go ahead and talk about that now. We had a fatal 4-way match on this show. Roman Reigns defending the championship against Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and LA Knight. The question heading into this match was not who is going to walk out the champion. The biggest question was who's going to eat the pin, because no one thought for a second that neither AJ, Randy, or LA Knight had a shot in hell of winning this match. They still had a pretty good match. I would say it was the best Roman Reigns match that we have seen since WrestleMania last year. It didn't follow the same similar formula that a lot of Roman Reigns matches do when they're singles matches or even tag matches. So it was a little bit different having the other guys out there. But in the end, Roman Reigns still won. There was some interference from Solo Sikoa, completely unnecessary, in my opinion. That match was flowing, it was going pretty good, and you had Solo screw over Randy Orton, who had Roman Reigns beat after hitting him with an RKO. You didn't need Solo out there, and he didn't even play a direct role in the finish, because the finish came down to LA Knight knocking into the ropes, knocking AJ off, getting hit with a Superman punch, and then Roman spearing AJ to retain his championship. So it was still a good match, but the outcome was never in doubt. And that's that. And so that clears the way for Roman and Cody. I assume Roman is going to disappear now. I don't expect him to be at Elimination Chamber. I don't expect us to get Roman and The Rock right now. I know The Rock came out on TV all those weeks ago and he dropped that little hint. If anything, I could see The Rock appearing at WrestleMania to fight off any potential bloodline interference. They had Paul Heyman come out on TV and say that The Rock was not invited to the Island of Relevancy or the tribal thing or whatever. Basically saying that The Rock is not worthy of getting anywhere near Roman Reigns. So, you can have Solo Sikoa threaten to interfere in the match with Cody again, and this time, The Rock comes out there, and he counteracts that, and he fights off Solo, and he indirectly helps Cody win. Cody still needs to do it on his own, but he is able to at least even the odds so Cody doesn't get screwed over again. And that paves the way and starts the build to The Rock versus Roman Reigns, potentially for next year, WrestleMania. Maybe you can do SummerSlam, maybe you can do a Saudi show, maybe. But The Rock, he spoke on ESPN a couple of weeks ago and he talked about how he's a long gamer. He likes stuff to play out long term and plan it out for that long. I'm thinking WrestleMania next year. Now WrestleMania 41, that's a whole year away. That's yet another year longer. Rock's already in his 50s. I don't know how much he wants to commit to wrestling, but that is an option. But at least We are not getting it this year. This year, WrestleMania 40, we are getting Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, and that is the rightful main event. And the rightful outcome of that match is Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns. If you disagree, I apologize. You are wrong. But the men's Rumble match was not overly exciting. It was exciting enough for me to talk about it for 20 minutes, but I'll tell you what was really exciting. It was the women's Royal Rumble match. Now this was fun. Again, I'm not going to go through every single aspect of this match, but this was a great match. Starting from all the way at the beginning, Natalya came out at number 1, but number 2 was the returning Naomi, who had a good run for herself in what was then Impact Wrestling, is now TNA again. She came out. Michael Cole even put her over and mentioned how she's a former TNA Knockouts champion and had a good run there. So we had Naomi out there, got a huge ovation, got welcome back chants. Great respect for Naomi, who had an incredible run for herself and made herself into an even bigger star and hotter commodity by being in TNA and dominating the way she did on that brand. To come back here in WWE, she comes off as more of a bigger star. So we'll see how they treat her now. At number 3, we had Bayley. And I posed the question of, are we going to see Bayley have her own Ric Flair 1992 style Rumble appearance / performance in this match? And she basically did. We had Jordynne Grace from TNA, the woman who beat Naomi over there, Trinity, for the Knockouts Championship, was Jordynne Grace. She came out there. So this is the second time that we've seen some WWE TNA synergy for the Women's Rumble. A couple of years ago, Mickie James was the Knockouts champion, and she appeared in the Rumble match. This year is Jordynne Grace. We even had a moment between Jordynne and Naomi where they hugged and then immediately started brawling, and the fans were going crazy for it. There were even some TNA chants for it. So the fans were way more into the women's match than they were the men's. We had Asuka and Kairi Sane were out there. They were trying to help Bayley, but they didn't last too long. They ended up getting eliminated. Bianca Belair, she was out there, very strong force. Chelsea Green was out during this match. Oh, and before I mention that, I do want to quickly mention Kairi Sane having one of the best spots of the entire night, where she was eliminated almost, and she was holding on for dear life. Her arms were up on the apron, and her feet were clutching onto the LED board on the side of the ring, and she was holding on as long as she could, but eventually she dropped down. And then not soon after her, Asuka also got eliminated. So that was a cool spot. But as I was saying, Chelsea Green was out there, along with Piper Niven. There was some cool comedy spots with her that I thought actually worked and were actually funny. Nia Jax came out at a certain point, and her and Piper were going at it, and in between was Chelsea getting ping-ponged and beaten and squished and smushed and all that. So I thought what they were doing with Chelsea Green in this match was actually very fun. Becky Lynch, she came out there. She was a likely candidate to win this match. She went after Nia almost immediately. We had another comedy spot, this one involving R-Truth. So Valhalla, of course, the former Sarah Logan, she came out at number 24, and almost immediately behind her was R-Truth running out there, confused, thinking that this was the men's Rumble match. He got in the ring, was looking around, very confused. He got dumped out by Nia Jax, and Adam Pearce, the Raw general manager, was coming out there to tell him that this is the Women's Rumble, and he has to wait till later. So that was much funnier than some of the stuff that they were doing with Truth in the main event. We had something I noticed during this match I forgot to mention in the men's match, but it was first shown here that they were displaying the times of certain people out there. So they had as a little logo in the corner showing some of how long certain people were out there. So they were showing how long people like Naomi and Bayley and Bianca Belair were out there. In the main event, they did something similar with Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes and showing how long some of these people were out there. In this match, Bayley, well, I'll get into it later, but Bayley was out there for a long time. Bianca was out there for a long time. Naomi, who just returned, she was out there for a while. So good stuff for her. Roxanne Perez from NXT was out there. So you had a couple of surprises in that regard. Tiffany Stratton, she also was out there. Liv Morgan, she made her return to the company. She was, or not to the company, but to TV. She'd been out with an injury for the past couple of months, but she returned at number 30. So that was good for her. People were expecting maybe Sasha, maybe AJ Lee. And I myself also kind of got wrapped up in that, and I was thinking we might get something like that too, but I'm perfectly fine with it being Liv Morgan. The crowd didn't seem overly enthused to see her, but it is what it is. But the biggest surprise came at number 28. And they did this after setting up Nia Jax as an unstoppable force in this match. At different points, she was racking up eliminations, just dumping women out left and right, just tossing them around and dumping them out, dumping other women on top of other piles of women on the floor. She looked like a beast in this match until we reached number 28, and out came Jade Cargill. She, of course, made her debut in the company several months ago. There were different points where they were showing her on TV, where she was walking in the backstage area. She was meeting up with Triple H and Shawn Michaels on NXT. They saw her in the crowd at NXT shows, and then she disappeared. Triple H mentioned in press conferences, and by the way, as I'm recording this, the post-show press conference is going on, and boy, I am very curious to see if anyone has the balls to ask Triple H some interesting questions. I am not gonna get into it right now. The Vince McMahon stuff, it's too gross, it's too disturbing. He's gone. He resigned from the company. There's still work to be done. There's still an investigation that needs to be, a true investigation that needs to be conducted in terms of all those allegations. But the man is gone, and hopefully he stays gone. I said what I said. There's no reason for that man to continue having any presence in WWE whatsoever. Although if you read Ronda Rousey's tweet from earlier in the day, you would know that so long as Bruce Pritchard is there, there's a good chance that Vince McMahon will still have some level of input, which I thought was a money tweet from Ronda Rousey. But as far as I'll say about Vince McMahon, he has no business being anywhere near this company ever again. He's gone now, then this time it needs to stick, because holy hell, if you know, you know. If you read what I read, Jesus, man. So he's gone. Anyway, we haven't seen Jade Cargill on TV since. We haven't seen her in the ring. This is the first time seeing her, and she came out there. She went face-to-face with Nia, was getting a big reaction, and she even hoisted up Nia. She body slammed her, she lifted her up, and all by herself, she eliminated Nia Jax from the match. Later on, she was holding on to Naomi and used Naomi as a weapon and used Naomi to kick Becky off of the apron and eliminate her, and then dumped out Naomi to eliminate her as well. Jade only got eliminated after it came down to her, Bayley, and Liv Morgan, and Liv and Bayley basically worked together to eliminate her. Actually, what actually happened was that Liv hit the Oblivion on Jade on the apron, and that eliminated Jade, and then Bayley pushed Liv off the apron and eliminated her. But Jade looked very strong in this match. She looked like a superstar, and was treated and received as one. There was a brief moment in the match where there was a face-off between Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, and in that camera shot, you saw that WrestleMania logo in the background. So, I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, her and Nia probably, they might want to do something with that, but this was a cool spot here. But in the end, Bayley won, and she broke a new record. She has now set the newest record for the longest time spent in a women's Rumble match at 63 minutes and 3 seconds. 63 minutes, 3 seconds. So, good for Bayley. The whole storyline is going on with Damage Control and that how Bayley wants everyone to win. The Kabuki Warriors, they won the women's tag team titles. Dakota Kai, of course, is still injured. Io Sky is the champion. Everything rested on Bayley's shoulders to go out there and win the Rumble, and she did exactly that. In very similar fashion to Ric Flair winning in 1992. I only compare the two only because Bayley came out at number 3, lasted over 60 minutes, and won the damn thing. So, great for her. And this is someone who has been incredibly selfless throughout her entire career, especially in recent years. She has done some amazing work as a heel. She is very much over with the crowd. The fans love her now more as a heel than they did when they promoted her from NXT to the main roster doing the smiley pigtail babyface gimmick. So, the hugger stuff. So she's been super giving of herself. She's eaten a lot of pinfalls to no more people than Bianca Belair. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen this woman get hit with Bianca's KOD finisher. She's lost to Becky. She's put over so many other people. And in the process, she's done her damnedest to help get people like Dakota Kai and Io Sky over. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Damage Control as a faction, she has done her best to get those two over as top acts and top credible threats in the women's division. And all this time, there's never really been a moment for her to just be on top and really stand on her own 2 feet and have a moment to shine. We've had moments here and there, but nothing very clear and distinct. Now, on this night, on this show, Bayley got that moment, and I couldn't be happier for her. Now, of course, the storyline is set up that the direction seems to be that she will be going after Rhea Ripley. But we all know that's not what's going to happen. The question is, how are we going to get there? The same way that people were questioning how are we going to get to the inevitable outcome of Batista and Triple H back in 2005, when Batista won the Rumble while still a member of Evolution and Triple H was the champion. In this case, Bayley's technically the leader of Damage Control, so we'll see how it happens. Io is the champion, though, so we'll see how it happens. All things right now, aside from a few spats and disagreements and some tension here and there, there's nothing right now at this moment that would set up an easy way for Bayley to be kicked out of the group and then choose Io as the champion she wants to face at WrestleMania. But that is clearly the outcome necessary. And a key line that Michael Cole mentioned on commentary is the fact that Bayley, not only has she never won a Rumble match before, but she has also never competed in a singles match at WrestleMania. So that eliminates any possibility of Bayley and Io potentially being a multi-woman match, adding in Bianca, adding in Naomi, or other outside people. Charlotte, I mean, she's injured, so she ain't going to be there, but however it happens, Bayley is going to get the match with Io at WrestleMania. As for Rhea, the world champion on Raw, I suspect she will either face Becky or Liv or both. If we're going to get a multi-woman match for a women's championship on the show, I expect the tag team titles will be defended in a multi-woman match. And I could see a scenario where Rhea defends her championship against Becky Lynch or Liv Morgan or both of them. If we get a triple threat for a women's title at WrestleMania this year, I fully expect that it is highly probable that it'll be Rhea, Becky, and Liv. Of course, Rhea and Becky is a big-time match all by itself, but Liv Morgan does have the built-in storyline injury, a real injury that they gave Rhea credit for. So they could go that direction. They could go that route. But as for Bayley, even if they tease on TV for a few weeks that she's going to face Rhea, the ultimate destination for her is going to be Io Sky. It's just a matter of how they play that story out, and I look forward to seeing it. And as we wind down this review, I will quickly discuss the other match on this show, which was the United States Championship match between Logan Paul and Kevin Owens. These two guys were in the unenviable position of having to follow that great women's Rumble match, a pretty decent four-way for the world title, and were taking place right before the main event the Men's Rumble. So you would expect this match to not really have much crowd investment. And early on, it was kind of like that. But by the end of it, they got the crowd fully into it. The crowd just was not a big fan of the finish, where one of Logan Paul's entourage, groupies, buddies, whatever, Jeff, I guess his name was, he hopped the barricade. Security was trying to get him out of there. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, who have aligned themselves with Logan Paul in recent weeks, they came out there. Theory slid a pair of brass knucks to Logan Paul. Kevin Owens eventually got a hold of Paul and yanked the brass knucks off of his hand. He put them on himself, and he went for a punch on Logan Paul, knocked him out. And the referee went to count the 1, 2, 3, but he held up the count right before 3 because he noticed the brass knucks on Kevin Owens' hand, and he called for the bell and called for a disqualification. Usually, I don't like DQ finishes on pay-per-view. Even here, it was a shitty DQ finish, but it was one that was done pretty well, and it was executed very well. It was pretty clever, in my opinion. After the match, Logan Paul obviously retained. Kevin Owens attacked him. He powerbombed him through the table. So this is clearly not done. We'll be getting a rematch. I suspect we'll probably be getting a rematch at Elimination Chamber. Maybe with some kind of no disqualification stipulation attached to it. So they're clearly not over with each other. This was designed to keep the championship on Logan Paul and not have Kevin Owens eat a pinfall loss or look too weak in defeat, which he couldn't have because they already had the built-in excuse of the broken hand. That could have been enough, but they wanted to drag this out, and so this finish was designed to do that. Now, whether they do the match at Elimination Chamber, maybe they blow it off on TV, I don't know, but this is clearly something that's going to continue. And isolated on this show, it's still a disappointing finish to see a DQ on pay-per-view, but for the story that they were telling, I was okay with it. And that about covers it for my coverage of the Rumble this year. Top to bottom, overall, a pretty good show. That Women's Rumble, it was great. It was great. There were some sloppy stuff in there. I didn't mention the stuff that happened with Maxine Dupree in that match. That was not pretty. As pretty as Maxine Dupree is, her moveset and her offense is not. And that was one of the weak parts of that match. A very weak part. Believe me, I am not trying to disrespect that woman or talk bad about her, but I'm just trying to review this show and talk about the things I see. And what I saw there, yikes. They talk about her training with the Alpha Academy. You couldn't tell by what you saw there. Aside from that, the stuff they did with Bayley, having Jade Cargill out there, all that stuff in that match was done to perfection. The Men's Rumble, not as good. Very dull. The crowd was very much asleep during it. I saw a few people, not very many, but I saw a few people saying, oh, this was the worst Rumble match ever. Personal tastes, but there's been far worse Rumble matches than this one. I almost equate this one to a Rumble that we had a couple of years ago, back in 2022, where it was just boring. That one was way more boring than this one, but I can kind of compare the two on that. But there have been so many Rumble matches that were so much worse than this one. This one was still, it was good. There was nothing objectively wrong with it. It's just the crowd just never really got into it. And like I said, in those early parts of the match, there was no one out there for them to really root for. Eventually, Cody came out there. Eventually, CM Punk came out there. But then even when it came down to the two of them, the fans rose up for a quick second, but then they went right back down as the two of them went back and forth. They basically had a 10-minute match, and overall, the fans were not fully into it until Cody dumped Punk out and won. But regardless, it was fine. The U.S. title match was good. The 4-way was good. Both matches were pretty predictable in that you knew the champions were not losing their titles. It was just a matter of how they're going to get to those finishes, and you saw it. But in the end, Both champions walked in and walked out as champions, so that was the logical outcome of both matches. But this is where we are. And like I said, I will continue to say it from now all the way till we get to WrestleMania. So this is an early prediction right now. Cody Rhodes, he won the Rumble 2 years in a row. You cannot have him then go to main event WrestleMania 2 years in a row and lose 2 years in a row. At that point, Cody's done. I don't want to hear about the story. I don't want to see him challenging for a championship again. You award him the Intercontinental Championship and be done with it. I don't want to hear about it again. You can't do that. There is absolutely no value whatsoever in keeping that championship on Roman Reigns any longer than you already have. The expiration date is long past for Roman's title run. They got their 1,000 days. They got to this point where they're doing the Rocky story with Cody. Do it. I don't want to hear about finishing the story anymore. At WrestleMania 40, Cody beats Roman. That's it. That's it. And that's it for my Rumble recap. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you who take the time out of your day, afternoon, evening, night, whatever, to listen to me ramble on about this craziness of WWE. Thank you very much. And if you like what you see and you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Comment down below what your thoughts are on this show, the 2 Rumble winners, what you would like to see at WrestleMania as far as the main event is concerned, and maybe some other predictions on how you think the rest of the card is going to look like. But also follow me on X/Twitter at DerekJ Speaks. And I will check you guys out next time for my next review of a big wrestling show. I think the next one will probably be Elimination Chamber in February. But if anything else pops up between now and then that I feel like talking about, you'll hear it right from me. So until next time, thank you guys. Love you guys. Check you later.